Hi, friends. Jim Freeman here from Silverbridge Senior Transitions again. Got another fact
So what they
and
wanna do is
fun-filled
look at the
interview with a
camera.
subject matter expert. Somebody that I think is really important for any senior facing the possibility of long-term care or changing their circumstances, moving out of their home, and doing that with their family. And, you know, from my personal experience, when I did this with my mother, I knew nothing about it, and we suffered greatly because we didn't have expert advice to help us through some decision-making processes. And we might have done things differently had we known the information we're going to discuss here today. But today with us is the fellow in the flashy suit. His name is Aaron Paker. He's an attorney and a counselor with a firm called Life Point Law in Federal Way, Washington. And returning for a second interview is our friend Silver superhero Mike England with Fairway Mortgage. And Mike and Aaron have worked together as a team for quite a while, and have, you refer people back and forth and try to help out. So I'm really excited to get this interview recorded so that you can get this information. But let's start, Aaron, with who are you, as a human being, and what got you to this point where you're helping seniors the way you are?
So I've been in Washington since I came up for college, bounced around all over the place before that, and I came up here expecting to be a genetic engineer and change the world through mutants and microorganisms that nobody had ever heard of. And
you're going to shoot them full of stuff. And
I was going to change the world through genetics. Went through a lot of personal changes in college. Got some mental health issues kind of under control, became a Christian after nearly taking my own life, and really decided that I needed to turn my life around and focus on helping other people. So I changed from genetics. I went into teaching. I taught early childhood, special education, low income for a long time. Kind of got out of that and thought, what else can I do to help people? And decided to go into law. Became a paralegal, expecting to work with kids again. Kids are the people who need all the help. Nobody protects the kids. And it didn't really work out. I interviewed, sent resumes to hundreds of law firms, couldn't even get an interview. Wound up through a bunch of coincidences in elder law, and eventually found my way to Rajiv and Life Point Law.
Rajiv Nagayich.
Right. And he said, "Do you have any experience with Medicaid?" And I said, "I've heard of it." And he said, "Well, here's a pile of files that we've done. Here's some wax you can look at, some regulations. Go teach yourself." And so I started learning Medicaid, and it became something I realized that I can help people, and I can see the immediate impact, and that aging Americans need as much help as the little guys, the little kids. So it just kind of went from there. After about the third time, I told them to fire my supervising attorneys because they didn't care about Medicaid, and they didn't want to listen to somebody who knew Medicaid. He said, "That's fine, but you better go to law school because I'm sick of firing attorneys." So I spent 3.5 years working full-time as a paralegal, doing law school at night, and trying to help raise my 2 kids. And that was, it's been almost exactly 3 years since I graduated law school.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, that's actually, to me, an inspiring story. One thing I share with my friend Mike here, I call us blue-collar professionals. People who have worked our way, sometimes with our hands, but through various positions or done things. There's always been an emphasis on trying to get better, trying to help more people, help them in better ways, and that's been the focus of your education and the way that you've done that. And you didn't go to some elite school on a scholarship. Your working days and going to school nights and raising your family. That's a lot of work.
It was a long 3.5 years. I think I averaged about 2 hours of sleep a night for 3.5 years, which was pretty easy when I went through college the first time, but doing it as a 40-year-old, 41-year-old, it was a whole different ballgame. But now I don't have to worry about, does my supervising attorney understand this stuff that I do? Are they going to have me giving bad advice to clients. I can be the expert. I can be the one who says this is how I want to do it, and I can go out and I can just help people. So
Right, and what I like about that too is you learned the Medicaid portion of it, the technical portion, by actually doing it with
Right.
clients inside of a professional practice, and then you got your law degree in order to, I guess, increase your skills or increase your understanding of the law and how it works.
Right.
And so you're able to help people that way. So one other thing that we've learned about him, Mike, is the fact that he's an expert bowler.
Yeah.
I used to be.
Yeah.
And he's a silver superhero.
Yeah.
And I think he epitomizes the whole idea of the silver superhero as the person who works incredibly hard to help people to change their lives as they're in their later stages of life.
Yeah.
And he's helped a lot of my clients and my own family as well. And so I'm so glad we're doing this today and getting to know
okay.
Aaron
There's
a
something to
little
know.
bit
So he's helped some of your family
better.
members.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. A couple of my family members.
What happened there? What did he do?
Well, a good example is I have a lot of misconceptions before talking to Aaron about Medicaid and whether you can use it. A lot of people tell me, "Oh, I make too much money for Medicaid and I'm too well off." And then I read his book for one, that helped, as well as some consultations with him, and found out. I'll give you an example. My mom would have no problem with me telling that she worked for Boeing her whole life. She had plenty of income, and including makes good Social Security. She's got a pension and all that. But when you get into long-term care situations, it's not enough.
No.
And she told me, "Oh, I don't qualify. I make too much." She told me that for years, and I talked to Erin like, actually, you do, and she's approved for it. Qualified now that she's later in life and needing some of that help, she's getting it.
Yeah.
And
But the key to that was finding out that it was possible, and how is it possible, and how can Aaron help her put that together. One of the things that I've found through some of the people you and I know in long-term care insurance, particularly, which that's what Medicaid is for this purpose. It's a long-term care insurance program funded by the government, but some people pay a lot of money for privately issued care plans. And I've had some recent experience with well-to-do people who bought what were described as golden policies, ones that were very good policies. But they had to move into assisted living, and they weren't sick enough in order to qualify to get the benefits for these golden programs. So I'm sure there are lots of people who have good policies and they pay and they're happy with them, but everybody in the senior area, 70% of us are going to require some form of long-term care at some point in our life. How are you going to pay for it? And actually, that's the subject of my book, which we'll talk a little bit about. But so let's dive in. So you're an expert bowler. You got a family. You got a couple of kids.
Yep. Amateur golfer, very amateur. I get a lot of exercise trying to find my ball. Love to cook. My next career, so I'm making the progression. I worked with little kids. Now I work with older Americans. When I retire from that, I'll work with dead animals, cooking. The dream is to open up a restaurant, fancy food on the weekends, and pay as you can during the week to continue that theme of helping out people. So, poor college kid, homeless guy comes in, has no money, they get the free meal during the week. I make my money on the weekends. So kind of working my way down the line through age, through death, just continue to progress through the ages. So.
Okay. Well, so when did you write this book? Was it before or after you became a lawyer?
This was after I became a lawyer. It was actually, I just finished it in February or March of this year.
Okay.
And already a lot of the laws have changed. I'll have to do some updates for the next version. They change them every 3 months, which is why a lot of attorneys don't like to touch Medicaid. Every 3 months the numbers change. And some of the numbers changed very slowly, and a couple of them made huge jumps since I finished the book. So.
Okay. So here's what the book looks like. Is it a New York bestseller yet?
I wish.
You wish, okay.
Unfortunately, I was impatient and didn't get the barcodes and everything I need to put it online. So it's a free handout that I give to people.
Okay.
Well, I can tell you it's a bestseller with all my clients. I make sure everybody gets one to take a look at it, and of course we give it away for free. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And so you never get the credit you deserve, but I know everybody has read it, has really been impressed and learned a lot, and it, as well as me. So
Right. Well, the cover actually says quite a lot. What you see is a photo here, or picture, painting of a crossroads. One road going to the right, one to the left. We have, like we do frequently at crossroads, we have pointing signs trying to put us in the right direction. And if you go in this direction, the signs say burden, destitute, institutionalized. That doesn't sound very good. If you go the other way, we have words like protection. That seems better. But we have stuff like CCRC and COPES. I have no idea what that means. So what does it mean?
It means that there's help out there. When people come to that point in their life where they're starting to realize they're going to need help, and they can listen to the neighbors and University of Google and say, I make too much money, I'm going to have to be in a nursing home if I want help. Instead, they can come to somebody like me and they can learn that you can actually protect anywhere between 50 and 100% of what you have, and you can get the state to help you pay for these things in most situations. And you can head down a road where you've got COPES, which is Medicaid in your home or in an assisted living. You can look for a continuing care retirement community where you don't have to worry about Medicaid or your health going forward. You can protect what you have, but you have to take the fork in the road. It's like any good city. You can head down the wrong road and find your way back over, but the further you go down the wrong path, the more gas you're burning up, the harder it is to get back on the right road. So if you can make that decision early, you can get help early, you can protect so much more of your assets, you can have a much better quality of life.
Okay, so COPES means something from the Department of Social and Health Services and the Washington Administrative Code and so on. But this picture paints a warning sign. It says that if you don't think about it until it's too late, until you need it, the results are probably going to be something you don't really want, and you're going to lose your chance to make a decision about what care you're going to have at the point where you need it, who's going to be making your decisions for you. And Medicaid really is only part of a larger picture of estates and care plans. And can you talk a little bit about that?
Right. So at Life Point Law, we have something unique that Rajiv does. He calls it life planning instead of estate planning. And it really is like a 5-legged stool. So he helps you make sure, yes, I've got the right powers of attorney, I've got the right will, I've got all those things that a lawyer would normally give for me. He also looks at, do I have the right medical team that's going to support me and do preventative medicine instead of reactionary medicine? Do I have a financial planner who's looking at, am I invested the right way? Do I have a housing plan? Am I going to try to grow old in a 3-story house with 57 stairs between each floor? Or am I going to find a place where I can grow old? Or am I willing to look at an assisted living or a retirement community and pull in the family and make sure that your family knows what your plans are? It doesn't do you any good to make all these plans to avoid going into a nursing home if you don't tell your kids about it and the doctor says, Mom had a stroke, which nursing home do you want her to go to for rehab? And They don't have an answer.
Wrong question.
Right.
Yeah.
So Rajiv really focuses on doing this life planning, but it's a process that takes a year and a half, and it plans for things that are 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. So it's something you start really early. And what I do is the fast forward version of that. People maybe are coming to me early enough in the process that they still have a lot of options. Sometimes they come to me and say, hey, it's Thursday. They told me that Monday they're taking Mom off of Medicare. I have to start paying privately $15,000 a month and she only has $30,000 in the bank. What do I do? So I try to use all 5 legs of the stool, but I have to do it in a month instead of a year and a half. I have to try to protect things without 5 or 10 or 15, 20 years to move things around and get things in place. So a lot of it is just figuring out how to use the rules, how to use the tools, and protect what you can in the time frame that you're given. And it becomes a mind game and a puzzle. You know, how can I make these pieces fit right now instead of down the line like they would ideally happen?
All right, so it takes years sometimes in order to have the proper documents in place, do the proper filings, make sure the family, everybody's on board, and that we know where the original documents are when we need them, because nobody wants copies. You know, you got to produce originals. But how long should what's the outlook in planning? You know, what's the ideal number of years or months that somebody should be doing this?
So if somebody comes to an attorney like Rajiv 10 years before they get sick, he can have just about anybody on track to do exactly what they need to do. They will never have to worry if they follow the plan he gives them to the letter and really understands and follows his instructions. The ideal for somebody who doesn't have that kind of time but is still getting ahead of the game would be the day you get that diagnosis. You've got dementia, you've got Alzheimer's, you've got Parkinson's, you had a stroke, and we don't think you're ever going to regain full function of that side of your body. Whatever it is, while they're still fairly independent, while they can form new routines in their mind and get used to a new living environment or new care providers, that's the ideal time to come to me. You know, they might not even functionally qualify for Medicaid yet, because everybody thinks I just have to be broke. But you also need to have certain physical needs or medical needs. And if you get to me early, I can protect a lot. I can give you options for staying home or choosing the care facility you want to go to instead of a nursing home. If you wait until the last minute when you're desperate and you're out of money and your family's living 50 miles away or 500 miles away, the options I can give you are just so much fewer. You have less options, you protect less money, you have a lower quality of care once you go onto Medicaid, if you can even get onto Medicaid in time. So the sooner you realize that you're heading down that road of losing your independence,
Which we all are.
right?
You
You want to come to me when you find out you've got dementia, but you're not seeing many signs of it. You don't want to come to me when you go and visit mom at Thanksgiving and realize she's got 7 months of bills sitting unopened on the table.
Right.
At that point, things have gone too far, and you have a lot less options.
Right. All right. So the sooner the better. 10 years is optimal. But you know, once you realize, and once the family realizes that the situation is at a point of deterioration beyond no return, that's the last moment in which you should do it.
Right.
Now, I imagine your clients are kind of a full spectrum of incomes and assets. Medicaid, I think a lot of people, I think of it as sort of a last resort for people with few resources. And it sort of is that, isn't it?
Sort of, although people can protect a lot more than they think they can.
Mm-hmm.
Generally speaking, if I'm dealing with a single person, not a married couple, a single person with more than $500,000 to $1 million, oftentimes they have other options that are better than Medicaid. A married couple, if they have more than $1.5 to $2 million, oftentimes there's better options than Medicaid. But you know, I'll have married couples come in and they say, you know, we have $1 million. Why do we need Medicaid to help us pay for this?
And why should we pay you to tell us how to spend our $1 million?
You know, why should I give you a couple of $1,000s to do this? And then they realize one of them is really ill and they want to keep them at home, but they need 24-hour care, and they're paying, I've seen as much as $30,000 a month for 24-hour in-home care. And if you can get even half of that paid for by Medicaid, or if you can find somebody who will do it for $12,000 and they'll take Medicaid to cover $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 of that a month.
That's a big difference.
It's a big difference.
It's a big difference.
At $15,000 to $20,000 a month for in-home care or for a skilled nursing facility right now is anywhere from $12,000 to $18,000 in most places. And $1.5 million doesn't go very far when you're paying, $180,000 to $300,000+ a year. That $1.5 million is gone in a heartbeat.
Right. So so for people with assets, and maybe we should talk a little bit the state of Washington, which is where we live. If people use Medicaid for medical services, they have a right. The state has a right to make a claim following death upon the estate to recoup the amount of money that was paid out of Medicaid. Isn't that right?
That's right. Typically, the fact that they're on Medicaid means that there's no cash, at least not in the name of the person who was on Medicaid. Where the big estate recovery comes in is people who own real estate. So if your name is on real estate and you're on Medicaid, there's going to be a lien when you pass away. For married couples, it's easy to get rid of that lien. For a single person, it's going to eat up a big chunk of whatever house you were planning on passing on to your loved ones.
Okay. So it's really, there are a couple of things here. Helping the person to qualify for this benefit that the state provides, that's a big deal. Another thing is timing, having it, I don't want to say approved, but you're eligible prior to the time when you really need it. Making sure you can maximize the benefit in terms of maybe not money that you get, but where you get to choose to spend it, where you're going to get your care. And then the last one, and maybe the biggest one, the couple of grand or a few grand they pay you to help them do this planning and put the proper documents in place is really an insurance policy for their assets. It's all about asset protection.
Right. And one of the big things we tell all of our clients is we don't want you to protect money just to protect money. You don't get to take it with you when you go. I don't care if your kids get it. That's not what I do this for. I do it for quality of life. You're in an assisted living facility and you go on Medicaid and they say, well, that's great, but Medicaid doesn't pay us enough. Now you're going to share a room with somebody you've never met.
Or you have to leave because we didn't check the box on your contract.
Right. Yeah. And if you've protected money, your family can use that money to upgrade you to a private room. Or, Medicaid lets you keep $75 a month and you are somebody who's always benefited from getting massages and things like that. You've protected money. Your family can pay to have somebody come in once a week and give you a massage, give you mani-pedis if you're, the princess growing up and now you want to continue some of that. What Medicaid lets you keep is next to nothing. Or, on Medicaid, maybe they only have to bathe you once a week and you can use that money to get a bath aide to come in privately and bathe you 3 or 4 times a week or 5 times a week if you really like being bathed that often. You can use it for care providers who will come in and take you on outings if you're in a place that doesn't do a lot of activities, or just come and sit and read with you. And be a companion caregiver.
Yeah.
The more money you have protected, the more you can increase your quality of life when Medicaid isn't paying for anything that provides beyond the basics of what you need to survive.
And it may not increase your lifespan, but it's certainly going to make your life more meaningful and more enjoyable for what you do get.
Right.
And less stress, worried about things when you're protected will increase your lifespan.
Right.
And they have going out to dinner once in a while.
Right. And and if you have ambitions, which some people do at that age, maybe you're active in your church, maybe you have some grandchildren or other children that you're fond of and want to spend some time with and try to help them out. So there's all sorts of possibilities. It's really about quality of life and being meaningful to life, to your community in your older age.
Right.
All right. Well, we're gonna kind of cap it right there for right now, but we're gonna come back. We're gonna ask Aaron and Mike to come back and discuss some specialized topics that are outlined in his book here. And somewhere, however we post this video, we'll make it clear where you can contact Aaron and talk to him if you wish, and how to get a copy of his book. You can get it from us if you wish, or you can get it directly from Aaron. Doesn't matter. So we'll see you on the next reel.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.